This episode is brought to you by our friends at msnpropertyfund.com. Wealth management is a journey, not a destination. I am Tshepo Pule, a husband of one and father of two. For years, my identity had been tied to what I do for a living until the year 2020 when everything fell apart. Hashtag COVID-19. Almost 5 years ago, I became a father for the first time, and I thought I was ready. Looking down at my son's chubby cheeks, my heart filled with pure joy and trepidation, seeing my exhausted wife on the bed after a water birth, I vowed to be the best father ever. It turns out, I wasn't entirely ready to be the best father ever. I had not prepared accordingly for the different stages in my life, career, marriage, and parenting. I have since lost my job, and therefore have chosen to be fully focused on what's important to me. I'm doing right by my vow, and I'm hoping to foster a community of fathers that share similar values. Welcome to the Timer's Playbook, a podcast series on fatherhood, proudly produced by 1730 Media. Welcome to this week's episode, which also happens to be my 10th episode. And on the 10th episode, I've brought back my lovely wife, Tessa. She has some questions for me regarding the podcast and how this fatherhood thing is going.
So how's it going?
The podcast. Yeah, it's moving, so we're going forward. We've got some help. Some people have come on board, to assist. Nati's on. He's the sound engineer / head of technical production. And I think we've got our first sponsorship coming up really soon.
Okay.
So I think, there's progress. It's going slowly, but that's the nature of it. However, there is progress.
And with you, what have you been learning? Really, I was speaking from a technical aspect. So what have you learned up from your first recording?
Technically or about myself?
Technically.
Oh. Well, the first thing is I needed help. That's the first thing, So I think technically I need someone who understands sound design, understands audio editing, and understands how you can translate a message from just a recording into a final product. So that's the first thing, And secondly, to be honest, the good thing about podcasts is that you can really record them anyway. So getting it done is not the issue. The problem is finding guests, securing them on time, because we're working with individuals, and at the moment we're doing one-on-one interviews and so forth. And the schedule has to work because I'm recording from my home, right? Our home. So I need to figure out a schedule that works. But technically, the podcast itself, because the equipment that I've got is geared for that, is not that difficult. But as time goes, as we get more shows in, we definitely need more help, particularly with things like promotion, audience acquisition. So when you start adding layers to it and we're actually building the business like we're supposed to, a lot more personnel and talent has to come in to assist.
So what's the biggest difference between your first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes from a technical point of view?
I would have to go back and listen to the very first episode, right? But I think the very, very first one we did, because actually the very, very first one was with you also. And I didn't understand the software as well. So it's about getting the settings correctly, technically speaking. And the approach then was to start with narrative podcasting. So the big difference was that back then it was taking me a very long time to put an episode together.
Okay.
Now it takes 48 hours, literally. So when we're done with this, I send it to Nati. Nati can have it ready in 48 hours. So turnaround time is much quicker. And at least now there's someone else who can challenge me on certain things so we can get the product better.
And how about the structure?
How about the structure?
Did you always have a Word document that you send to your guests before?
Yeah, from day one.
Oh, you always had that?
Yeah. No, everyone. So, I mean, look, it's important to do a bit of research, So the document is there's a set of questions I ask them to understand where their life is, a little bit about their kids and what they do, and then some questions depending on who we're interviewing, right? So if someone owns a business, so the last episode we did was about water safety. So it was more about understanding what water safety is, the structure of swimming in South Africa, knowing a bit more about Sarah as the person and why she started the business. But it wasn't so much about her as a mother, because it's not a motherhood podcast. It was more about her business and how it can benefit parents understanding water safety and how they can get involved or learn to swim or teach their kids to swim. So you have to do a bit of background research before any interview. So yes, I have sent it to everybody.
So, what have you learned from your podcasts?
So far, I've learned that fathers, we definitely do not talk. But I've also learned that the podcast is the best way, one of the best ways for me to get the conversations happening, you know. So when guys come through and it's in a situation of an interview, right? I think they're much more open, and it's easier to do because they understand the format and why it's being done. So they don't feel like you're just coming to my house, we're going to talk about our feelings, you know? And all of them agree that these conversations are important. So I think talking to guys, timing is everything. Setting is everything. We can have conversations, and we actually do have conversations. We don't always do them in a way that people think it should be done or around settings that it should be done, but men talk all the time. Whether we take time to do it or we focus on sports first or women or whatever, it doesn't matter, but we do it. And we're all going through similar things, to be honest. Everybody wants the best for their kids, you know? So as people who are more alike than we are different. So that's what I've learned.
And how has that changed the way you parent? Like, what bits of information did you hear that adjusted or had an input to your perspective?
Well, top of my head, I would say, I think it was episode 3. Jabu said, you need to be the master distractor. So I really like that, you know. So if your kid is crying about something, and let's say, kushopong, but like a toy, you know, and you know that they're not getting toys today. So you have to find another way to distract them. You can make them laugh, or you can maybe say, take this rather, you know. So I think it's really cool, as opposed to me just focusing on saying, no, don't, you can't have that, because that just leads to more crying and more problems. So I think that was one of the first piece of advices that I got from the podcast that was really cool. A lot of advice is you just got to allow them to be kids. You know, that's what everybody feels. And I agree with that. You know, children have to be children, whatever that means. All the guys that come onto the podcast want to be better fathers. So that's really good. So they're making an effort to be better fathers in any case. And they have their own approach and their own systems in terms of how they do it, you know. And I think that's really cool, because I would pick up and I would hear, like I was saying with Jabu, like he says, that's it. That's his approach. I learned a bit from Moses, how to deal with a sickly child. I've learned that even though we all want the same for our kids, not every home parenting situation is exactly the same. Meaning that they do have some different challenges that we either haven't gone through or are still going to go through. So it's good to get that information and get a perspective on it.
So, having listened to your podcasts, it was quite clear to me when in your interview with Tshepo, you guys have gone to the same Northern Suburb High School background type vibe. You know, those are very elitist school. And there are a lot of people who just don't have that background, you know. And when I look at the rest of your cast, I mean, it is our circle. So it's not very diverse.
Yes.
I'm quite curious to see the evolution of the podcast, you know. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to hear from divorced dads. I want to hear from single parent dads. I want to hear about dads who don't have access to their children, you know. I want to hear about dads who are not from affluent or middle class backgrounds, you know. Being a black man father means so many different things, because there's so many variations of black fathers. Mm.
So I agree with you, and that's a very good point and very good feedback. I agree with you 100%. And I'll say this, if anyone is listening and they fit into those categories, you know, reach out social media, via email, and let us know what your story is. So the growth of the podcast is exactly that. And it started with my circle. Like, the podcast started with you. where you're going to start, right? You start with the people that you know. I mean, that's how you start every business. You start with the people that you know. And what has come out, and this is a very fortunate thing, is that our circle, and fortunate particularly for the children, our circle, both parents are there. Fathers are involved. So to grow this thing and to be I'd say even a lot more relatable to everybody. Like you're saying, the black father is not a homogenous group. They go through different things, different stages. I don't know what it's like to go through a divorce, for example. So I agree with you. We should find fathers like that. How do you deal with that? Like children, what happens? You know, and that's a real thing that's happening day by day. Or fathers that can't or are not being given access to their children. That's something that we see a lot, you know. And so the growth of it is adding other elements too. Not just talking about it. How do we actually help them? What kind of legal advice do we give them? Where can they go? What other experts can we bring in? You know, what can we actually action? So the growth of the podcast is having those diverse stories. And then the next leg of it is now what do you do with that? Right? So how do we get boots on the ground to actually help society at large, not just fathers? And how do we expand then into the rest of the continent, right? Because the stories are everywhere, you know, and podcast fortunately can reach everyone. And my priority is contributing to the betterment of the African continent and essentially the African child, you know. So at some point, yes, all these stories I would like to have them on the podcast. So it's part of it is me going out proactively to find these stories, and part of it as we start to grow the community, then they come up organically, then we can bring other people in. So I agree with you 100%. The podcast cannot grow if it's just my circle that is being invited onto the podcast.
Okay. You do know you're going to interview some dads you don't like, right?
They're cool.
How? It's diversity of stories. Not everybody's going to be your friend. Not everybody
No,
you're
for
going
sure.
to... You know, you're going to have some characters that you actually genuinely don't like.
No, Tessa, I think you're forgetting.
I'm just letting you.
No, baby. I'm a seasoned broadcaster. You forget this. I didn't start broadcasting Izolo because of podcasts. You know, the conversations. A conversation is a conversation. And if I'm going to do this professionally, I should be able to sit across a room to somebody I don't agree with in terms of how they approach certain things. You know what I mean? Like a simple issue in South Africa that we could make an example of is racism, right? The only way to talk about racism and to fix it is for me to engage white people. Because you and I, and other black fathers, it's an echo chamber, right? So you want to challenge their thinking. They must challenge my thinking. And was come to a resolution, you understand? But we have to have these discussions. Because at some point, for example, kids start dating, right? Maybe the one father feels that my kid shouldn't date someone that's not of their race, you know? So these conversations must be had. Politically, they must be had, you know? And the cool thing is, whatever position or chair that people hold, we're coming in from a fatherhood perspective. So when you're sitting there and you're saying or doing certain things or signing on policy, right? What is your thinking? Because you're impacting our children and yours. Yes. So how do you come to that conclusion? Because once you start talking about people's children, everything changes, right? Because one guy stands there and he talks shit on stage about whatever because he's a politician or because he's a lobbyist, whatever it is. He's the sweetest dad ever. And we all want the same thing, right? They want their kids to be safe. They want their kids to go to school. But then if that's the case, how are you then part of a group that's perpetuating nonsense?
So what's next for you?
Next for me in what way?
Well, parenting. I mean, you're going through a bit of a thing right now with the work.
Yeah.
How is that affecting you as a father?
It isn't. You know? Like it really isn't. So before, you know this, like if I was going through a tough time, everything about me would be on that problem to try to fix it. You know? I've been looking for work for almost, it's the second year now. And I realized I'm not in control of that right now. There's nothing I can do. You know, it isn't like I'm highly employable or some shit. You know what I'm saying?
You mean unemployable?
No, I think I'm highly employable. What do you mean?
Oh, okay.
Young Tall. So there's nothing I can do about that situation right now. What I can do is wake up every day and take care of the business that needs to be taken care of. And it's important then when I'm alone, the conversations I have with myself. So I don't harp on about it like I used to before. You know, so if I'm feeling down about it, this probably lasts for like 30 minutes, maximum an hour. You know? So before I'd be on it for months, I'd probably be still on it. I'd be depressed, we'd be fighting now, right? Because I just couldn't snap myself out of it. But now I'm able to do that, right? So meditating helps. Removing myself from the situation helps. Staying busy with the kids helps. But also when you're older and you have children, I need to pick them up from school and I need to take them to swimming. There's no time for me to be feeling sorry for myself in between that. You know? And they're going to want their music. They're going to want what they want when they come back home. And if the energy is not right, they can pick up on it because I just send it back to them when I'm unhappy, and that's not cool. You know, so I'm not thinking about work as much as I would have. I am focused on my business and my side hustles, but my entire focus is on my kids and my family. And that I'm cool with. I'm very happy for now. Look, I haven't run out of money yet, so I'm still cool. So I think I've got maybe like 2 more months. So once Chelete fell, then I'll be like, this is over, you know. But you and I have been here before. And that's the thing about growing up and experience. We've been here before. We've worked. We've lost things. We've had to move back home. Nobody died. You know, it is okay. And we're surviving and we'll survive. And to be honest, with everything that's happening in the world, we have more than a lot of people have. Yes. So being grateful and understanding our privilege and what we have is what I live on. You know, we have a car, we have a home, our kids are warm, we have food, we still go to gym. We're here sitting recording podcasts during the day.
Yeah.
You know, so there really is no time to feel sorry for yourself when you're living in that kind of privilege. And I say privilege comparatively to where the majority, not majority, but a big chunk of the country is. You know, people don't have simple things that we take for granted, like unlimited internet, right? People are fighting for simple things like water, access to education, you know, just transport money to get to work or even have a job. As a father of 2 boys, I believe it's important to save for my children's future and put something aside each month for some of my goals, dreams, and ambitions. Finding the right investment partner, one that has taken the time to understand myself and my family, has been a challenge until I was introduced to the MSM Property Fund. From as little as 300 Rand a month, you can invest in local and offshore real estate. Offshore investments include those listed in the United Kingdom and Germany. Financially, things have been tough because of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. But instead of buying myself a nice bottle of whiskey every month, I put aside $300 to invest in property. As someone new to investing, I get monthly newsletters, monthly reports with online and phone support. All I do is sit back and watch compound interest do its magic. For more information and to sign up, visit msmpropertyfund.com. That is msmpropertyfund.com.
You know, just to be on that point, bit of a segue. Sorry from the topic, but we made this choice. You know, there is a debate about choices and what people accept and what they don't accept. We chose to live in this building, even though we would have had people like on some, why would you do this? Why are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. We are living in a smart building that has a generator because I need that for my life. And I fought and I found an apartment just for that, you know. We make the choices to live where we live and we pay the cost of living that way. Our country has so much more to offer. But if we don't demand those living standards for ourselves, out of ourselves, and we leave it to somebody else to do those things for us. I think that's where the crux of the problem is. You know, it isn't that everything is great and HCOM is not broken and goodness knows what. However, if as the individual, you pick a level and you do what you need to do to make sure that that level works. That level works. But there's always a cost to whatever comfort you want to create for yourself. How many people do you know are willing to pay the price for that? I'm meeting more and more people who make the assumption that that's what it should be. People who make the assumption that I am lucky. Of course I'm lucky. Like I scored the jackpot with you. That's not a problem.
No doubt.
But equally so, I prayed for you my entire life until you showed up.
Yeah.
You know, that part never gets, like, nobody notices that part. Good. Ever since I was 16, I was very intentional about the type of man I wanted to end up with. To a point, I didn't even have a list. I just said one word. God, send me a man who will love me. The rest will figure it out. That costs something as well. Because you kiss a lot of frogs, you know? A lot of potentials. But I had one criteria. How many people are willing to hold out for just that one criteria?
Okay. But it is a segue.
Like, it's a serious segue, but anyway.
Like, did you have something on your mind?
So just to come back with that fatherhood, but like, us being grateful for the life that we had is an equal part aligned to the choices that we both made or you made for us.
Yes. But remember, gratitude doesn't mean that it's void of choices and that we didn't pray or work for it. It's not what it means. It means that whatever happens, we're okay. And you judge the situation by what you deem is important. You know, 10 years ago, we could have still been in the same flat and I would have not been grateful. Because in my head, what I thought I valued was different. So there was always a want and a need for something else. You know, so when I say comparatively, it's because I know where I have come from. Right? And so you're talking earlier about having a diverse people on the podcast or having people from different backgrounds. I agree with you 100%. So gratitude is where I come from, and that could just be yesterday. Do you know what I mean? Yesterday could have been a shitty day, and today is a better day. You know, but either way you look at it, the day will pass and the sun will come out tomorrow. You know, so you'll be okay. That's what I mean. So it's got nothing to do with everybody else. It's got nothing to do with the choices that other people make or that we make. No, it's not that. It's that for me, I understand where I come from. I understand where I am, you know, and for the first time in a long time, I'm really cool about where I am, even though it's the brokest I probably have been in a long time, but that's just financially. And even then, that's still based on perspective. Because when I speak to, like my niece, for example, my niece in her head, I should stop this talk because I'm doing all right.
Your niece thinks you're rich.
I know.
That's why you need to buy her expensive birthday present.
She says she wants earpods. I'm not doing that.
The limited edition one. I was like, yo.
You know?
It's nice to have Uncle Stapura as an uncle, eh?
Yeah, once Stapura buya, then uzowana again. Zoba Stapura samambele, then she'll be alright. Yeah, no, so that's what I'm saying, baby, like about fatherhood and where we are. I think I'm cool, you know, but this situation, it's good because when you're in a tough spot, right, it really does push you and galvanize you to do what you need to do. And that's what I like about fathers, is that fathers, even, I don't care what it's been called or labeled, right? For the most part, fathers get up and do what needs to be done. That is in our DNA. That's physiologically what we're about. That's what we've been taught. And I'm okay with that. I have to get up and make a plan. Otherwise, what's supposed to happen? We're speaking now, okay, we're airing out our feelings. You and I have spoken. after this, life must go on, right? And there's no time or luxury to be wallowing in whatever misery I think I'm in. It must happen. And that's what fathers do, So those fathers that you're referring to, Batsuang every day, that go to different jobs, whether it's a construction site or retail or taxi driver or whatever it is. That's what fathers do, And that's essentially the essence of what we're trying to get out of the podcast, is with all of that and all of these challenges, how can we remain intact but still get shit done?
The interesting thing about your podcast with fathers is that the focus is fathering. It really is fathering and what it means. But how many people, or how many men, because it's not a woman thing, thank God, how many men have a definition of what fathering is? Like the one thread I got throughout your entire podcast, it's almost like the baby arrived and then you had to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one aspect I forgot. Yes.
Like each and every single one of you, except for Moses, he always wanted to be a dad at a certain age.
Yeah.
For him, he had to figure it out for whatever reason. But everybody else, it almost like, okay, she's pregnant. Okay, this is fine. And then you're holding the baby and all of a sudden it's like, yo, I'm a dad. What's that about? Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Do you never think you're going to be a father?
No, I do.
No. You didn't until you were.
No. What we didn't know was when it was going to happen, but we were trying. There's a difference. So remember, for fathers, right? No, let me not speak for fathers. For myself as a father, or before I was a father, I did not want children because I wanted to enjoy my 20s, right? And I did enjoy my 20s. I don't know. It's inexplicable to me. But izinto mazihlangana, job is good, home is good. You feel that you can take care of children. Then you make children. So our child wasn't an accident. It's that when you told me about it, because you never know, like if today we're doing it and then the baby's coming. I don't know. It's just that when it was like, oh, snap, it's finally happening. Then you do that. But both our kids were planned. But hence, one of my first questions when I'm doing the research is, why did you decide to be a father? How did you plan for it? So in terms of why I decided, I can't tell you why. It just felt like it's the right thing to do at that time. And it still is, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah. Some dudes, straight numbers, hey, kid is here. Let's go.
The only way to make a baby.
It's the only way to make a baby. So that's what happens. But that's why I'm saying, when we speak to people, it's about their story. So everybody's got their own story in terms of how they did it. That's why sometimes the narrative that black men are like a homogenous thing is not cool. There are characteristics and cultural things that bind us together. But ultimately, we're all human beings and everybody's got their story, And that's what I'm trying to get out, is what is your story? What is your approach?
Okay. So what's your takeaway from your podcast? Is it enough to make a book, or is there a season 2?
No, I mean, there's it's not enough to make a book. So we still have to keep going, So the podcast, Tessa, for me is, from a selfish perspective, a lot of it is about me, right? And I am sort of like trying to take the listener and the people that take time to stream and listen to the podcast, which is very appreciated, through my experiences and where my headspace is. And hopefully we can find a meeting ground somewhere. So it's not only just talking about fathers. It's like talking about the swimming thing, right? So it's important to me. But I know that there are a lot of other fathers that are going through it. So it's not just sports, as an example of swimming. It's extracurricular things. Like, how do you decide, right? How do you keep your child motivated? Like, do you force them to go every week because you like the sport, But it's important also, right, to keep them committed to something, and to learn competition. So it's all these things. And there's also spirituality. There's African spirituality. There's ancestors. There's business. There's finances. There's travel. There's politics, geopolitics. There's a big thing right now. Socioeconomic issues. So the growth of the podcast is going to go into all these areas as I'm navigating life. And I will be speaking to other fathers who are in those areas, and then see what I can learn from them, but more importantly, what the listener can learn from it. How can they get all that information and apply it? Because for me, I don't have the answers. Like, for example, the next big thing now is African spirituality, right? That I want to delve into and understand better. And that's definitely not something that we talk about at all. But there are people out there that are in that, I wouldn't say in space, but are going through these journeys, understand it, but I'm going through it I'm a father, Angit. So
we actually have a friend who went off the rails, came back, and he's a father of 3. So it's worth reaching out to him.
Yeah.
Because I think he'd have something to say.
So the diversity is going to come from experiences. But it's not going to come from things that are separate of me. Like, that won't make sense. So I won't wake up tomorrow and I'm doing an entire podcast on the situation in Ukraine and Russia. Right? But I probably, and we definitely will, try to understand socio-political issues on the African continent, because that's what's important to me. And it's not to say what's going on out there is horrible and devastating and people need help. It's that my primary concern is the continent of Africa. And I think that's where we need to focus more, because in the past years, I've also been focused on, if I can make it in America, you're singing, our focus is always out there. But our continent is the one that needs help, and it's not coming from anybody. So the expansion of it is part of that too. So we have these diverse conversations. How then can I get other fathers, other men in different parts of the continent that we can start having conversations with, and we grow the community like that. So that's the aim.
So here's a question, because now at least I can see where it's going on a socio-economic platform. A lot of your interviews, your fathers who are on the platform have a deep connection with spirituality.
Yeah.
What's your guiding force?
You mean like religion? Well, that's where they come from, right?
No. And I think it's time this actually was said, and it was said very clearly. Religion is political influence on people's beliefs. Period. It's structured, it gets politicized, and then it becomes set as a way of life.
Okay.
That's how religion is conformed. When you practice whatever religion that you choose to practice, right, and you honor the spiritual path in it, the elements of all religions are the same. I don't care what you want to call it. I don't care how you interpret it or how you experience it. Energy is energy. It doesn't need you to label it. It doesn't need 7.8 billion people to buy into it. But we all know what happens when you're still. We all know what happens when you pray. We all know what happens when you meditate. We all know what happens when you're quiet and you go within, irrespective of what you want to label that. Right? Now, people get lost in semantics and language, and suddenly this word means this, so therefore you are. Language creates otherness. The thing about spirituality, it's the singular thing that makes you realize you're the same. Nothing else. So when we speak or I engage about spirituality, it's neither African or non-African. It's just so people can get context in what culture I'm coming from. But spirituality is spirituality. And you have a guiding force. How does that help you become a father?
I don't know what guiding force I have. I really don't know. What I am working on is, like you're saying, so the big thing for me is going inward. That is the big thing, and understanding myself first. before I move on to other things. And so when I start getting into myself, that's when, like I was saying earlier, I stop worrying more. I'm understanding what my triggers are. I'm understanding why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, because I'd ask myself, so why are you feeling like this? And, this just happened. Every time this happens, you feel like this, So I don't know if I'm supposed to have a bigger guiding force, or I'm supposed to believe that there is a higher power, higher being, because that's what everybody says, right? I don't know all of those things. That's what I'm exploring. All I know is I am from a people, and I am connected to those people. And I have duties and a vision for my life that's going to make the world a better place. That's how I live my life.
Okay. What are you going to teach your sons?
I'm teaching my sons every day. It's not just one thing.
No. That's an easy scapegoat.
What do you mean? What are you asking then?
I'm asking you, how are you going to teach your sons to connect to the spirits that they are and the energy that is those spirits?
No, that's why you're here. This is your job. Then what do you do?
I am the mother.
Yeah, and you understand these things way better than me. And I'm gonna teach my kids how to kick a football, how to tackle, right? How to manage life, and how to think, how to be their own person. And hopefully through all these lessons, that stuff comes out. But if you want to delve deep into it, see, like I said, our union, there's things that you do, right? And I'm not saying that I should not know or understand it, but you understand it so much better than me. You understand? What do you want me to do? My job is the lights, Wi-Fi, electricity, isn't ezinjalo. That's my job. And then you can guide us. You tell me what am I supposed to do, with the spiritual beings that they are. I mean, the school that they go to, they teach them that stuff. They're learning about the earth. They know more about the solar system than I ever did.
Yeah, you always check.
Awesome.
When they say something, you fact check with me. I'm like, yes, he's right.
I'm like, fucking A. That's what progression is. The kids go to school and they learn certain things. And what I like about that school, again, is that they're learning how they are connected to the entire universe, From land to water to mass to the planets and in between, all these things. So they're learning these things. So I'm not fighting the progression. I'm not fighting that they need to be in these spaces. I'm not saying I'm not well versed in that, and I'm still learning. But if there's someone out there, at the school, that's able to help them, it's not entirely the school's responsibility, right? Help them assimilate on certain topics. Then they can, when they come home, like, okay, cool, how do we break this down? Then how do we understand this better? I'll go learn, I'll go read. I don't mind reading, I like reading and understanding certain things.
So your firstborn is very much on the God tip these days.
Because of you guys.
No, but even when Paul woke up.
I don't speak about God to my children. It's
no,
you.
Wait, when Paul woke up, remember? And he's like, what?
Why am I on earth?
Why am I on earth?
Yeah.
I have realized, because our chosen parenting style is to be guided by our children.
Yeah.
In that questioning. There's other stuff we take care of automatically. But to give them information when they bring it. And I'm just letting you know that if that's what's happening, it's closer than you think.
I'm not a good person for that.
It's closer than you think.
No, I'm not a good person for that.
Your boys are there.
No, I'm saying that's great. Well, I'm not.
So let me buy my esoteric books for little children.
I don't know what that is. Listen, Tess, I'm not going to fight you about God and your religion. I've spoken to you about this many times. Our kids will understand how you were raised. You are from a home like that. That's going to be part of them, right? When you decide to go back to church, for example, or go back to engage, at least with that community again, I'm in full support. I'm not coming. I'm not interested. But it's not to say that I don't support it. So when my son comes and asks me about God, angazi. Buza bogogo bako. They go to church, both of them. Ask your mother. Ask your aunt. They've read the Bible back to front. Right? If you're talking about the Christian God. You know, if he says this is something that we should do together, no problem. Let me read the Bible then. Let's engage. Let's talk. But right now, I'm not there. Like, I don't, you know. But I'm all for it because I've said to you many times, I have seen what good it can do and how it grounds people and how it helps people. People pray for us. It happens all the time. It's a beautiful thing. I have my own issues with church from when I was a kid. Right? Until I deal with that, that part is not happening. When my son says, why am I on earth? One day I'll explain to him, Chief, you must decide why you're on earth. I have no idea. I brought you in. It was nice to bring you in.
No,
Actually,
you facilitate.
I facilitated the bringing in. I was part of a union that brought you in. As to why you're here, that's a question that only you can answer. But hopefully, through our education, he'll get there quicker than most. If he ever gets there.
Oh, no, there's an answer to that. You're letting it be his choice, but there is an answer to that.
What's the answer?
We're all here to serve each other.
Okay. Cool. I thought he was here to play rugby because... But it's okay. It's okay. He can. It doesn't matter, baby. Do whatever you want. When he's ready, he'll tell me.
But I think it is important that we say it, especially since you have on recorded that this is my aspect of our union that I take care of.
No doubt.
We're here for service.
Okay.
And it isn't limited to specific career sectors or job titles. We're here for service. And when you pursue that, and you pursue all that is in you for greatness, your default is to serve other people.
Ah, that's great. I agree with that.
On that note...
Thank you. I appreciate you, Tessa. And thank you to everyone for coming through and listening. It's been awesome. Sharp. Proudly produced by 1730 Media. This episode was brought to you by our friends at msmpropertyfund.com. Remember, wealth management is a journey, not a destination.